Okay, I wanted to show you some of the online resources I use for planning observations or imaging sessions. One of them is this calsky.com, calsky.com. I use this for a couple things. I use it to see what's up in the sky tonight, and then additionally I have it programmed to send me emails about when the ISS is passing over and having good passes, and also when the ISS or other satellites are passing in front of the moon or the sun. So anyway, there's a lot of different things you can do with this site. I encourage you to explore it, but right now we're just going to look at it for determining, some good targets to image tonight. I'm on this page because it's somewhat flaky as to how it logs you in, so you want to make sure that you're logged in. Okay, so now it doesn't show that login, so that's indicating that I'm logged in. And the reason it's important to be logged in is just so that you have your observing location in there so it knows where you're observing or imaging from. So then, I'm normally doing deep sky imaging, so after logging in I would click on deep sky. And once I get to deep sky, then I can select different types of targets, and I'm generally interested in nebulas. So I'll click on nebulas. Okay, and up here you have an opportunity to set the time frame for when you're looking here. Tonight it's going to show you the different nebulas that are in the sky, when is kind of an optimal time to observe them, and then there's some information over here about the name of the nebula or the object. And so I look at its size in arc minutes, and it tells you here when the best observing time it is and when it's going to be at the highest altitude and what the highest altitude is. And all those things are important because it's easier to auto-guide at higher altitudes than lower altitudes. The sizing is important to know how it's going to look in your field of view in your camera. If we go down here to the bottom, there's probably some really tiny objects. Yeah, see, here's one that's 0.1 arc minutes, so that's probably not going to be very exciting in a 100 or 120 arc minute field of view. Okay, so that's one source. And then what I would normally do here, if I want to know more about an object or what it looks like in my field of view, let's take M50. Well, that's a small one again. Let's go back here. Trifid Nebula, M20. I could do a couple things here. We could go into Ccd Calc. Okay, and I've got this is the current setup scope that I'm imaging with the focal reduction and stuff. So this is my focal length with the focal reducer, and here's my camera. And so all of this information is correct for that rig. So it's telling me that I've got a 42 by 64-ish arc minute field of view, M20. And there I can see what it's going to look like in my field of view. So that's a pretty good sized object to be imaging with this particular imaging setup. Other things I would do once I see something that looks like it might be interesting in CalSky, just Google it. So let's Google M20. There's probably some kind of gun or something that's, here we go, Trifid Nebula. so I can find out more information here, and there may be some good images here as well. One of the things you want to do is try to understand how it looks in RGB or LRGB versus narrowband, so that you know which type of, if it's going to look good for your setup, or if it would really be best in narrowband. So the other thing then that I do to look for more pictures is just, let's add this to it, nebula. Like I said, we don't need the pictures of guns and stuff. So then I just go up here and hit images, and we'll get a bunch of different images. Then I can go in and see if I want more information about how that particular image was taken. That kind of looks like a combination of RGB and narrowband. Let's see here. Yeah, I was right. LRGB and HASI and O3. So that's kind of cool. So that's one of the online resources. And then another one that seems to have a different set of objects in it is Tonight's Sky. Let me back out here to the login page or the home page. So this is tonightssky.com, and this, you don't have to log in, but apparently it has cookies to store your observing location in it. So when I come back here, I've always got my observing location, and then I can pick, the difficulty of the objects I want to look at, then what type of object, and then you just click here for what's in Tonight's Sky. And some of these are going to be the same, but they're not all the same. I don't find this this research very helpful, but again, what I do instead is just go and Google the NGC number. So those are a couple online resources for finding objects and determining how they're going to look in your field of view and how high they are in your sky. And then of course the next thing that you would want to do then is go into Stellarium and just make sure, or your whatever planetarium program that you're going to be using, and make sure that they're at a good altitude and they're not behind a tree or something. So I guess we can do that while we're talking about it. And so this is a landscape from my observing location in Scotts Valley. So you can see I've got a panorama here that I've added to Stellarium, and this right here is where my scope sits, and I can just see Polaris over this set of trees here. So this tells me when objects are going to be coming up behind hills or going behind trees, or between trees. Of course, we've also got the meridian here. Then I can turn this off at any time to see I've got the horizon turned on, and I'm looking at equatorial grid lines. So we've got our RA and deck lines. We can check that I'm looking at tonight here. So we're looking at tonight at 10:52. It's not a bad time to start imaging. So we can hit F3, and we were interested in M20. So let's go to that, and lo and behold, it's behind the house. So let's go in there, and we can, so we need to, if we're going to look at M20 tonight, we can't do it at 10:20. Let me back it up here. This is not a great object for tonight because it's going to be really low in the horizon and also low be, it's not going to be fully dark. So those are the types of things you want to check for. We do look for M33. That's actually not a bad object once we get, I'm just going to go forward here a little bit. So there's our 9:36 in the evening, and it's already up high enough to where it'd be a good target. So to use, besides determining where in the sky an object is in Stellarium, you can also kind of do some framing, because it does have some artwork for the different objects in it. So if I use the page up command to zoom in here, there's my triangulum galaxy, and then the field of view tools are up here. So I've got different sensors and telescopes. So here again is my Canon T3i and my 8-inch RC with the focal reducer at 1203 millimeters. So then you can see that that's a good object for that field of view. So that's another thing you can do with Stellarium. You could also use it for sort of framing multiple objects. So for instance, the one I always think of is M81 and M82. So if we slew to M81 here, let's just pretend that this is high in the sky. You can see here it's below the ground tonight. But here's M82 and here's M81. So we can use the arrow keys to position things, and then Alt-O, there we go. You can rotate using the arrow keys. Then I could position, and then I can read the RAN deck that I want to point my scope at for framing these two objects inside my field of view.